Lawyers, which of your co-workers made your life annoying?
Did you make him beg for rescue?
Story 1 IT for disinviting a co-worker for perpetually spoiling things. Almost every Friday, my co-workers and I will go out and get drinks and socialize. More often than not, it's an open invitation for the entire office, and even people outside of our team would join.
We typically have a great time, but only when Logan 20SM doesn't show. Logan means well, but is easily excitable and engages people in conversations they're not interested in. The worst of this behavior has to do with spoiling movies, shows, games, etc. A few weeks ago, I mentioned that I had tickets to see the new Mortal Kombat movie over the weekend. Logan lit up and immediately responded, "You'll love the scene where spoiler happens and when spoiler shows up."
I was bummed and walked away without continuing the conversation. Later that same night, Amy, another co-worker, was discussing a TV show she was a few episodes behind in. Logan blurts out, "I can't believe that beloved character gets seriously harmed in episode whatever number." Amy, who had obviously not yet watched it, went silent and turned away. Logan laughed and said, "I just can't help it.
I get too excited." None of us were amused. A few days later, in our team-only group chat, someone brought up Logan's tendency to spoil things and admitted that they wished he weren't invited to outings because of it. Multiple people agreed and began to list everything Logan had spoiled for them.
With this in mind, I didn't add Logan to the email invite for the next week's hangout.
He noticed he never got an invite and began to ask around, as I was the one
who'd written the email. He was eventually directed to me.
He pulled me aside as I left for lunch and let me know I excluded him by mistake. Rather than try and play it off, I just told him the truth that the fact he spoils everything is obnoxious and rude. I told him that joining conversations just to spoil things is bad enough, but he also starts conversations with spoilers. Logan was immediately defensive, claiming it's not his fault we're slow to watch or play or etc., and that he's just making conversation. I told him that if he swore he'd be more conscious about this habit, that he could join us that Friday.
He came and lo and behold, spoiled the plot of a movie I wanted to see in theaters.
Out of frustration,
I called him a jerk and told him that this is exactly why no one socializes with him.
He left soon after, and even though I said what everyone was thinking, I felt like an asshole. Eta. Edit PT.
1. A few weeks ago, we had lunch catered and all joined in the break room. A co-worker had brought a book to read during lunch and Logan
saw the cover, pulled up the Wikipedia, and read the entire synopsis aloud, including the big twist ending.
I asked him why he would do that, and he responded, "Why not?" Edit PT. 2. The book was Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Verdict, not the as whole irrelevant comment slide oak for 1 NTA. He absolutely can control his behavior.
He chooses not to.
He is deriving pleasure from spoiling things for everyone else. He can learn to control himself or he can be excluded. The choices really do seem simple, Miss Movie agreed.
This isn't accidental behavior. It's intentional behavior that he has been asked to stop. So he is choosing to spoil and also choosing to do something that he knows is upsetting to others, especially the situation mentioned in the edit. It wasn't his excuse of "I'm too excited not to share" situation because he had to Google a book to ruin it. I wouldn't want to spend any time with someone like that either. It can't be an accident, because he has said that it's also that they are too slow with catching up. Makes me curious what the timeline is. Doesn't sound like he follows the rules of 2 months for a game, 2 weeks for a movie and 2 days for a TV show when spoilers are no, because people need to catch up. If he has no rules for time, he's spoiled The Handmaid's Tale for Amy less than a full day after Hulu dropped multiple episodes. He told me about Mortal Kombat on a Friday, after having just seen it during a midnight premiere on Thursday. I drew 1 NT. This guy is Trevor from The Good Place. He knows exactly what he's doing. Oops, speaking of The Good Place, he spoiled that.
2. He told us about the point system, that it was messed up, and how the main characters ultimately fix it.
This spoiler was prompted because someone named Doug visited the office, downvoted commentary.
Logan sucks for spoiling stuff, sure. But you and your CU workers suck for handling it in an extremely passive-aggressive way, instead of calling out his behavior. Both you and Amy stayed silent and walked away, then gossiped behind his back with the rest of the office to make a secret list, then uninvited him from hangouts, then finally snapping at him, calling him a jerk, and telling him nobody likes him, simply going, "Why did you say that?" I was really Looking forward to seeing Mortal Kombat, and you just ruined that scene for me. I'm bummed. Would have been way more effective getting the point across than all the little secret plotting behind his back. We've explained to him before that spoilers aren't cool and that we don't appreciate them.
The reason we started turning
away and ending conversations abruptly is because, if you don't, he'll just keep talking.
For example, he spoiled Tenet as a conversation opener and proceeded to loudly explain the science of the movie for the next 10 minutes despite being asked to stop. Maybe Logan is autistic. I appreciate your response.
I agree that Logan may be autistic and that, if so, we ought to be more patient with this.
However, we've told him many times before that we don't appreciate spoilers, that we don't want to talk movies or shows or games with him, and that we will be upset by having plots ruined.
Do you think it would be advantageous to further explain why
we get upset about spoilers? How long has Logan been doing this for the sake of brevity? I didn't put much in the post, but Logan has been doing this for years. Back in 2019, he came into work and greeted me by spoiling the ending of Game of Thrones.
Hey Regent, can you believe that Jon seriously harms Dany?
Crazy, right?
Update. Your responses had me curious, so I tested something out.
Last night our office went out for drinks again, and Logan showed up. At one point, when I knew he was listening, I mentioned a movie I really wanted to see. I gave the title and named some actors that were in it and left it at that. Logan didn't say anything immediately, but pulled out his phone a few minutes later. The rest of the night went smoothly until I was about to head home.
Logan flagged me down and asked me to repeat the movie title I'd mentioned. I repeated the title I'd given earlier and Logan got upset.
He told me that movie didn't exist.
He's right. I made it up. He called me annoying and a killjoy and said spoilers shouldn't matter if you're just going to watch something anyway. He told me to get over the fact that he likes sharing major plot points and claimed I ruined his night.
And so, as many of you concluded, Logan is just a jerk who enjoys spoiling things. Part of me hopes he spent his entire evening searching for a movie that doesn't exist. Part of me feels bad that he feels that's something he needs to do for whatever reason.
Pulling a prank on him might make me kind of an asshole too, but to be honest, I think it was worth it. Comment 1. People do that with everything.
People just can't be jerks anymore. They have to have something causing it. It's annoying as hell. Comment to right. Like if this was something that only happened every once in a while when Logan genuinely just gets ahead of himself and immediately apologizes. I'd say he probably deserves a little grace there, but he literally goes out of
his way to spoil stuff he hasn't even seen. That's straight up malicious. There's no diagnosis that magically transforms that into excusable behavior.
Comment 3. Exactly. As someone who is indeed autistic, this kind of attitude pisses me off to no end. Pretty much every single autistic person is gonna mess up a social rule at some point through simply not realizing it innately.
But the vast majority
of us who are raised right only need to be told once that we messed up, and we learn from then on what the rule is.
The only people, in my experience, who don't do that are those who are raised with everyone around them going, oh, but they're autistic. You can't be mad because they're autistic. They don't know any better. You have to let it go. Don't hurt their feelings. They're autistic.
Which ultimately leads them to grow up into adults who believe everyone has to dance around and let them do whatever they want, cause they're autistic.
Which leads them to being lonely jerks who no one wants to hang out with. Comment 4. I personally have had a lifelong habit of needing to read ahead, even in movies or TV shows. I don't know if I'd call it a hobby, but I've spent so many hours reading the plots of horror movies I'll never sit through. Lol.
Whenever I sit down to watch a new movie either by myself or with someone else, I immediately look up the plot and spoil it for myself.
Couldn't tell you why, but that's how I like to watch movies. However, I am a functional member of my communities, so I keep my mouth shut. I don't give anything away, no hints or watching their faces or whatever. I just like having a general plot structural guide in my head just for me. All that to say, I can understand the impulse to look up the plot and be in the know
for big twists or pop culture moments, but I absolutely cannot fathom how someone would derive their joy from stealing joy from others. Pathetic behavior. Story 2. My vegan coworker is upset about getting non-vegan gifts 3 years in a row. We work in a small office of 6 people, and since we've all been here for 3+. This past Christmas, Marie got Liz a gift set of fancy popcorn.
She actually asked another coworker what a vegan snack was as she was getting everyone a gift with a snack theme.
However, she got a different coworker one of those gift sets with summer sausage, cheeses, mustard, etc. This coworker is a man with very Ron Swanson-type tastes, food-wise, so he would appreciate this. The problem is these gift boxes looked very similar, once wrapped, and Marie accidentally switched the
labels.
So Ron got the fancy popcorn and Liz got the sausage and cheese.
Yikes! Liz looked genuinely shocked when she opened it, and Marie gasped and began to explain, asking Ron to open his gift to show the popcorn intended for Liz. Liz was very
quiet throughout, and the coworker who had recommended the popcorn said she had indeed suggested this to Marie. The popcorn set contained 2 jars of cheese seasoning, but I really think Marie tried this year.
Liz finally traded gifts with Ron and things awkwardly moved on. The problem now is Liz is being very cold to Marie, and Marie confided that our manager had a talk with her, saying Liz feels that Marie has a pattern of bullying her through these
gifts.
Marie was so upset because she really didn't intend any of this. It was just ignorance the first 2 times, and then this last one was a complete mistake.
She knows how it looks, but she doesn't know how to fix it. In such a small office, one person openly thinking another is a bad person is very awkward for everyone.
I don't know if there's anything Marie can do to mend fences with Liz, but if there is, I would love to suggest it. I feel she's apologized and been backed out by the coworker who suggested popcorn, and Liz is being a bit unreasonable to hold
a grudge.
But I'd love to hear if you think there's anything Marie can do to fix it. Update. Sorry I missed the post the day it went up. I was busy that day, and then frankly overwhelmed by the number of comments.
But thank you for your reply.
You were perfectly right. I wasn't a party to any of it myself, so I couldn't really get involved without causing drama or taking sides. So I didn't, except to hum supportive noises whenever Marie was fretting about the situation to everyone.
In the office, she really was very upset that Liz would think she was intentionally getting her non-vegan gifts. In sort of half-heartedly listening to her fret one day, I realized, and another co-worker did at the same time, so she was the one to point it out, but Marie was clearly hearing vegetarian when anyone said vegan. She thought as long as no meat products to be consumed were involved, she was fine.
My coworker actually looked up the definition of vegan and read it to Marie, and she was like he asked about Marie and Liz's relationship outside of the gift debacles. And to be honest, it's complicated by the fact that Marie's husband is a local councilman who is kind of controversial. There was some gossip a while back that Liz was in his public Facebook comments calling him out for some of his positions. Marie never talks about his job or his views. Quite the opposite. She has said she has no interest in any kind of politics.
And she has banned her husband from political talk at home.
Regardless, I could see Liz maybe thinking she actually is aligned with him privately and being wary of her. After her enlightenment, Marie bought Liz a Body Shop gift card and apologized
once again for her mix-ups.
Marie sees herself as a bit of an office MOM, so she always goes a bit over the top in terms of the gifts, both in price and in trying to personalize them. She very much didn't want to get a gift card because it was generic, but in
the end, she thought it was safest.
Liz still isn't the warmest toward her, but they appear to be back on solid footing. We'll try to vet Marie's next Christmas gift ahead of time. Editor's note. Below or oops comments that will help provide more context to commenter asking if it was intentional or not. I think you have blinders on where it comes to Marie. If I were vegan and received non-vegan gifts 3 years in a row, I would believe it was intentional. Marie didn't bother to ask Liz what being vegan entailed after the first snafu. She then gave Liz a leather dog collar.
It's common knowledge that leather is made from cow skin. After the first 2 gifts being non-vegan, I find it difficult to believe that the charcuterie wasn't intentional. Poop. The charcuterie mix-up was truly a mix-up.
I saw some speculation about this on the first post, so just to clear it up, the popcorn gift set contained unpopped popcorn kernels, of course, as well as 3 jars of seasoning which were in glass containers. It also contained a decorative bowl that was made of glass.
It was heavy.
And it was the same shape as the charcuterie board. It was similar weights as well. Commenter 1. Ha. My mother-in-law made a soup for my vegan husband and me, and she said, and I quote, "It's vegan, except for the sausage."
Like there were vegetables in it, so that was the vegan part. And the sausage was just an incidental addition. Oop. OMG.
This reminds me after her first grandkid was born, Marie made her vegetarian daughter-in-law chicken soup without
chicken chunks in it, but she still used chicken broth. Commenter 2. The more you attempt to defend Marie, the worse she actually sounds. Including chicken broth in a more complicated dish can be an incidental oopsie. Going home, I'm going. To make chicken soup for someone vegetarian simply comes off as passive aggressiveness. Oop, I'm not defending her.
I can't help but laugh at the ridiculousness. But I'm not defending it. She should learn what these terms mean.
She thinks her daughter-in-law walks on water though, so I really don't think it was meant to be passive-aggressive. Commenter.
3. Yes.
The impression I'm getting is that if Marie isn't malicious, she's incredibly thoughtless and dense, and the whole office just knows and expects everyone to go with it. That's not great either, frankly.
Oop. My coworker calls Marie our missing stare not to her face, of course, although she would have no idea what it meant. Oop explains Marie more in the comments. Marie isn't dumb, but she is just very absent-minded. And I say this with affection, a bit of a ding-dong. She doesn't Google things, full stop.
She thinks the rest of us are magicians when we can find info on Google.
Then she said, I really need to start doing that. Then she'll look up a number the next day in a 10-year-old phone book. She called the city once to ask why she hasn't received a new phone book in years. They've been hanging out with their coworker a lot over the past couple of weeks.
This girl always seems to be in some kind of crisis too.
Last week, it was that she messed up an account and she was
afraid she was gonna lose her job.
I don't know whether I'm reading too much into this or if I'm overreacting, but I've never met her, and I've asked to swing by whatever bar or place they're hanging out at multiple times, and I'm always shut down in some way or I get no response. I don't want to be the overbearing, over-controlling girlfriend whose significant other can't have any friends, but lately they're always together, and I'm getting blown off.
These curt and vague responses are out of character too, and it's
always the type of response I get when I'm asking questions about an event where this female coworker is at, or really anything that has to do with her.
It has really put me on edge. They're usually such a sweet and attentive partner, but I feel like they might be cheating.
Am I overreacting?
Comment 1. This is crazy.
Because of how true it is. Being a guy, I always made sure not to get
involved with females having relationship issues or anything that needs a shoulder to cry on. Not that I don't have the self-control, but I just never put myself in a position like that for my exes to worry about.
Even if it's completely legit, but as you so eloquently stated, it's usually not. Still puts unneeded stresses on the relationship. When you're in a real relationship with someone that you actually care about, you try to avoid external stresses that don't need to be. There's billions of other people in the world that these people can cry on. Comment to my thoughts exactly. Someone that clearly doesn't care about their own relationship or the feelings of their partner, and using an excuse to be there for someone
else going through a hard time in their relationship seems like the wrongs aren't making this right.
He's clearly hooking up with someone from work. Otherwise, it would have been a phone call, not her figuring it out on text. Comment 3. The part that pisses me off is they had plans, but then he said the work thing was last second.
Like WTF, I see my coworkers all day. If I have plans after work, there's zero chance I'm going to spend more hours with coworkers after work. Comment 4. He plays it like a work thing, and when that doesn't work, he pulls the emotional support card. I'm sorry, but my husband has had actual work dinners come up when we had plans. I was invited to join, and the bosses gave me an apology. Lol, nor here op. You deserve more. Your plans with your boyfriend were less important than a coworker being cheated on. Big yikes. Story 4. Okay. So a bit of context. I 20 for if work as a chef in a small cafe.
One of the girls out in front of house comes to me and confides in me a lot I consider as friends. However, she goes into crazy detail about her personal life, how people treat her, and how she treats people. I've been working there nearly 2 years, and it's ranged from her boyfriend, his son, and other things. Her now fiancé has a son, who
he had from a previous relationship.
Let's call my coworker Linda for ease. Linda knew this before getting in a relationship with him. A lot of their arguments stem from him having a child from a previous relationship. Recently, she has started telling me about how she gives out and has no patience for his little boy. He's 6, he is a child.
The most recent vent of hers that resulted in me being quite blunt with her. Apparently, she had left the room for about
30 minutes and left her food on the bed.
Her fiancé's little boy went in and started to play Xbox, got hungry, and ate the food.
Linda came back and sees red, immediately starts screaming at him. Then she gets really nasty and tells him that
every time he's here, he's a freaking issue, and she just can't get enough space from him. I don't know everything that was said. Archie always talks about how she doesn't want him in the room a lot of the time, despite the fact that he only visits on weekends. I snapped. I told her she needs to grow the freak up and do better. I told her she knew he had a child and chose to get in a relationship with him.
That it's not the child's fault that she disagrees with her fiancé's previous choices.
The kid's mother isn't nice either, so he has it hard enough there too. I told her she has an opportunity to not only be a great mother, but also a great stepmother to that child. What will happen when you birth your baby if you're already treating him like this?
I said she doesn't get to scream and shout at an innocent
child because she can't handle her emotions, and no matter how bad she feels about it, she deserves to feel that and needs to. I have no sympathy for her. She comes in saying this, that, and the other about how bad she feels after doing it, but she keeps doing it. She's been giving me the silent treatment for like 2 days.
I understand I may have overstepped, but she shouldn't have asked for my opinion then.
Comment 1 OMG, I had a flashback in the last part of what you just said. I had a brother who went through a couple of horrible girlfriends who were somewhat
nice to his 2 girls, but then were absolutely horrible to them when he wasn't around.
He's 11 years older than me, so I was a teenager. But they didn't really hide it from me. Comment 2. She sounds exhausting and far too immature to have a child. I have a 7-year-old.
Sometimes, do I want peace and quiet and to retreat into a cozy corner alone and read a book?
Yes.
However, my daughter is the light of my life, and she constantly comes and tells me little funny stories about something crazy.
Or we will play a card game, or read together curled up together as she plays with my hair and tells me how I'm the best mama in the world. That's what you sign up for, including when she is going to wake you up in the middle of the night, or she accidentally trashes something of mine. Kids don't ask to be born. They ask for love. I pity her poor baby if she doesn't have the compassion for that little boy who has a sucky time with his own mum and then has to deal with that kind of attitude at his dad's. She will find out so quickly that your life or bed or sleep or snacks or anything is not your own once you are a parent. But I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. My daughter is the best thing I will ever make in my life, and be my biggest achievement being called her mama. Comment 3, Dad is as much to blame as she is. Allowing someone like this in your son's life.
Keeping someone like this in your son's life. Honestly, the dad is worse than her, which says a whole lot.
I feel sorry for her future child and this little boy. She deserved everything you said and far more. Enjoy the peace of the silent treatment, and if she tries to talk to you again, tell her you have zero interest in wanting to know about her personal life, and that from here on out the only converse you'll have with her is about work. Comment 4, she was doing this before pregnancy, just not to that level.
When she goes on though, she's like in and out, constantly on about it.
The next day,
then it dies off.
Then there's another problem for a while. Sometimes it's just not a good week on a Monday, and she didn't have a good one last week either. Then back to the child. Then she gets pregnant, so excitement for a while, and then this. Insufferable. I am enjoying the peace and quiet. Story 5. I spammed a coworker with email read receipts for 3 weeks. Always the same email. Years ago, I found a way to trigger multiple email read receipts for the same email. We can disable read receipts at work. I had a coworker who insisted that he receive one so he knows that we read his emails.
He was such a pain that our manager told us to turn off the block. After much trial and error, I found that if you put an unread email into a folder on your desktop and make copies of it, then each one you open will send a new read receipt. I sent
him a couple dozen right away. He asked me why he's receiving so many of them for the same email. I said that I have no idea what he is talking about. I only opened the email, replied, then deleted it. A few days later, I sent him more, always the same email.
He only got one read receipt from me for every other email.
He asked me again.
I played dumb. Over the next few weeks, I would open more.
Sometimes only one, sometimes more than 50. It was always a random number.
I would just put them into a folder and open them all at once.
He was getting increasingly frustrated, insisting that I was doing it on purpose, and called it. IT was very curious and called to talk to me. They wanted to look at my laptop. I confessed to them what I was doing and why. I told them I had my fun and I'll stop. They closed the ticket with a generic response saying the issue is resolved and recommended we disable read receipts, which we did. I was really worried about losing my job because technically I was wasting time, harassing my
coworker and intentionally stressing him out.
Nothing ever came of it. Comment 1. I guess it's a bit less chaotic, but I don't bother waiting for people to mute themselves when I can clearly tell it's them that are causing the echo, and I mute them myself. It can drive them a bit crazy, because they can't figure out how they got muted, but it's their fault for thinking it's cool to just constantly sit unmuted in a crowded office. Comment 2. You really want to drive the room mad. Switch the background of the meeting. Didn't know for over a year that while I thought it was hilarious, I was putting us all in movie theaters and in the wilderness non-stop because I was bored. Some people on the team got hella distracted. Thankfully, it doesn't show who's doing it. Comment 3. The fact Microsoft lets us do this stuff like mute everyone anonymously is probably the best gift programmers have ever given us. It would have been so easy to record that action in the meeting chat, but nope. I ain't no snitch. Comment 4. I messed with some guys like this at work too, but once they got IT involved, I cut it out cause I didn't want to waste their time and draw more attention. These people I'd mess with were more like buddies too, so it was intended as a prank and not harassment. I'd flip the batteries in his mouse, and he would get really confused throwing them out and getting new ones. One guy I messed with on purpose cause he was a lazy guy with a big ego, but it wasn't technology. He got demoted and put in our cubicle area, and there was this table and chairs in the middle. I noticed people would leave them out sloppily, and it annoyed him, and he'd shove them back in. So each morning, I inched the table and chairs closer to him. One morning, he came in already pissed off, and when he backed up his own desk chair, it hit the table. So he shoved it and the other chairs away really loudly, and they fell over. Story 6. I used to eat my coworkers' apple chips at work, then tell him that I was allergic to apples so he wouldn't accuse me. Just to be clear, this wasn't because I was particularly hungry, it's because my coworker was an absolute jerk. He was really creepy toward the girls in the office and always said some pretty weirdly racist stuff to our other coworker who was from Mexico. He was just a crude, horribly annoying person who seemingly took enjoyment out of making everyone around him uncomfortable. He was like a mix of Todd Packer from The Office and Tony Soprano. He always brought these apple chips into work to eat for lunch, and occasionally I would go in, take the apple chips, and go to the nearby park and eat them for lunch. He would go around asking everyone if they took the chips and would act all pissed off because he knew someone took them, instead of just flat out telling him I'm allergic to apples. I put on a little show. He was eating his chips 2 days before I started to take them, and I asked if I could have one, and I took one and almost took a bite, then said, "These aren't apple flavored, are they?" And he said they were. Then I quickly put it back on the plate and went to go wash my hands, and I said I was allergic. Much more believable than me just flat out telling him. This went on for about 2 months. I must have taken his chips like 10 times or so. Comment 1. There are IgA, and autoimmune reactions to foods. Based on which one you have, your reaction will range from anaphylactic to throwing up a lot, to pooping a lot, to being constipated or bloated, to getting inflamed, getting headaches, feeling fatigued, and so on. Allergies are a very complicated topic. People only think of anaphylactic shock and consider that the only type of allergy and everything else either intolerance or exaggeration. Unfortunately, common to pork allergies aren't the most common of the food allergies, but they're up there. It's also possible to have allergies to sulfites or nitrites used in the curing process, or to other allergenic materials used. If butter is used, and there's a dairy allergy, if mayo is used, and there's an egg or oil allergy, please believe people if they say they have an allergy. Yes, everyone knows there are people who fake it, and yes, some allergies sound made up. Do you want to be the person jabbing them in the leg with adrenaline if you were wrong? Comment 3. For the record, you can be. I know because my cousin's new boyfriend once came to my house, and it was my first time meeting him, and my cousin told my MOM that he's allergic to pork. So my MOM went and bought turkey bacon, and at the time I was very annoyed because I thought it was a fake allergy, and I hate turkey bacon. Anyways, they eventually got married, and my MOM dad and brothers were privately talking about him. We all agreed he was a great guy, super cool, took care of my cousin's child like it was his own, and then I brought up the one thing I did not like about him, the fake allergy. Then my MOM informed me that it was, in fact, a real allergy. Comment 4. That's not always the case for plants. For example, there are certain chemicals present in the leaves and stems of plants, but not in the fruits, which is why you can eat the fruits of some plants and not the stems or leaves or vice versa. For example,
Avocados, especially for dogs. The flesh of the avocado is safe to eat, but the skin, leaves, stem, and pit of the avocado are toxic. Comment 5 allergies are really weird, honestly. Like, why does your immune system feel the need to start? WW3 just calls you at a peanut, lol. I know about allergic reactions and the process of them, as well as how to fully treat them. I'm taking a medical provider program in college, but I don't know exactly why allergies happen or exist. I would love to take a real immunology course. My program isn't like doctor or anything, just to really fully understand the immune system and how it works, like vaccines, etc. I think it'd be so cool.
Comment 6. This is incorrect.
You can be allergic to certain parts of a food or foods in certain conditions, but not others. For example, individuals that experience oral allergy syndrome (OAS) can be allergic to fruit with skins. For example, apples, and eating raw apples can cause significant irritation of the mouth and esophagus. However, if the apples are cooked,
even simply boiled, they can often eat the fruit just fine, presumably because the peptides stimulating the allergic reaction get broken down.
Also, anecdotally, I'm allergic to soy milk, but can eat soybeans and tofu just fine.
And just as others have said, nitrates are commonly found in cured meats and most wines, and are known to cause allergies in many people.
So it is quite possible to be allergic or experience oral irritation eating bacon, but not pork. Comment 7. Red meat is slow twitch muscle, dark meat.
White meat is quick twitch, light meat. However, nutritionally, a lot of people still say pork is red meat.
There is another question about myoglobin. Basically, the answer isn't simple.
People aren't allergic to red meat because there isn't a constant definition of what red meat is.
I know someone who is allergic to meat that is high in iron. Cow, deer, sheep, and some fish are off limits.
Pigs, most fish, and even young meat such as veal baby cows are fine. Comment 8. Technically, you can be allergic to anything. My knowledge of allergies only goes so far, so I can't get into any more detail than this without possibly giving false information.
When you're allergic to something and you become exposed to it, your body produces histamines.
The more allergic you are, the more that is released.
These cause a cascade of effects: rashes, hives, swelling of the airway, swelling of multiple different areas of your body, constriction of the bronchioles in the lungs, decreased blood pressure, increased
heart rate, etc. The more histamines, the more extreme the reaction, which is why mild allergies cause itching and rashes.
And anaphylactic allergies cause extreme hypotension, low blood pressure, which can lead to hypovolemic shock, tachycardia 100 bpm, which can lead to supraventricular tachycardia 150 bpm, where only the ventricles contract and airway closes off, both with the swelling of tissues in the mouth and constriction of the bronchioles, which is why you hear wheezing.
How you're exposed can also determine how bad it is, which is why people who ingest something they're allergic to can go into anaphylactic shock very quickly, whereas if they just touch it, then they have a normal anaphylactic reaction.
And if they smell it, they can start to get hives and go from there. In order to smell something, particles of the thing you smell actually have to enter your nose.
But obviously, the longer treatment is delayed, the worse the reaction can get, especially with anaphylactic patients. Story 7. I got drunk at work, stole cheesecake, and ended up passed out in the dressing room. So this happened a few years back. I worked for a high-end clothing store as a stock clerk or order pull.
One week, they asked me if I would be willing to work the night shift from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m.
These were very unusual hours, and it was me and 2 other coworkers required to stay. I had another job lined up at the time, so my commitment for the current one was not very strong to begin with. I decided I wanted to make my night a little more interesting, so before work, I stopped and bought a bottle of whiskey, knowing that my boss would not be working, and it would be very relaxed. I ended up drinking a lot more than I should have.
I'm great at handling my alcohol, and my friends would tell you that I don't seem even slightly drunk, when on the inside I know exactly how drunk I am.
So I pounded a bottle of whiskey in my car right before going in.
About an hour and a half into my shift, I was stumbling and knocking stuff over. Luckily, none of my coworkers saw this. I started getting hungry, and I knew that on the 3rd floor
there was a little bakery or restaurant that the store owns. I'm not sure why they don't lock the bakery up, but I thought it would be a good idea to go check it out. I ended up hopping over the counter and getting into all of their cheesecakes. I had about 4 slices of 4 different types of cheesecake, and I also helped myself to some Sprite.
I was so happy, but I started to feel really tired after. I Ended up going into one of the dressing rooms and completely passed out on one of the benches inside. I woke up about 2.5 hours later with my name blaring over the loudspeaker. I thought for sure someone had seen me and reported me. I got to one of my coworkers and they were saying, "Where were you? Where did you go? We've been looking all over for you." I told them I got sick and I was puking in the bathroom and needed to go home. No more questions were asked and I was sent home that night.
Never ended up getting caught. Comment 1. When I was in college and working at Sharper Image, I was closing one night with an assistant manager who just got word that he was being redeployed to Iraq.
So he and I took turns going into the back
room and doing shots of some sake he had for some reason. I definitely got pretty drunk, but I remember people specifically complimenting me on how helpful I was that night.
It's possible I was more drunk than I thought and they knew and were humouring me. Or maybe just social lubricant made me a better salesman.
Never got caught. No regrets. Comment during one wild party. Got super drunk on screwdrivers, danced on the table, then seduced the CEO's young driver in the closet, and then fell asleep in my shoes on my financial directors and my boss at whose place the party was bed.
I woke up at AM, quietly dressed, and left the place. I called her at AM asking when I can pick up my office stuff to free up space as I was 100% sure I was fired.
She said I have to be at work by 9 and that I can take a taxi as I can afford it now because I was given a raise. Go figure.